Greetings to all the participants present here. On behalf of QA Research and Publications, I would like to welcome you all identifying impact factors and indexing of reputable journals. To start with, let me give you a brief about QA Research and Publications. QA serves as a platform to publish research articles in prominent journals and conference proceedings. We assist authors in publishing their research findings in high impact factor journals, promoting their work, enhancing their reputation, and building a strong standing. Among several indexing databases, Scopus is one of the most published articles. The wide recognition and impact of these journals makes them highly valued in their academic careers. We have recently published the Scopus Q1 journal called F1000 Research, published by Taylor and Francis. The authors can now easily submit their articles to our partner gateway with F1000. F1000 Research is an open research publishing platform for scientists, scholars, and clinicians that offers rapid publication of articles and other research outputs without any editorial bias. All articles benefit from transparent peer review and editorial guidance on making all source data openly available. Now I'd like to welcome our speaker, Professor Froilan B. Mogo, who is a doctor of public administration graduate from Quvae and the second development education program in the use of APIs. After obtaining his doctorate degree, he was promoted and received the position of assistant director and associate professor of the Department of Research, Development, and Extension in the Philippine Merchant Marine Academy. He also worked with different international research institutions, such as Director of the Research Institute, lecturer in the graduate school, Massey University. He was also appointed as editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Multidisciplinary Applied Business and Education Research, Malang, Indonesia. He has been appointed as technical research coordinator by the Department of and also published 90 research articles with 70 citations and also published 12 international books in Europe, Indonesia, and India. As a researcher, he is an external peer reviewer in various international journals and has been invited as a keynote speaker at various international conferences and international universities around the world. Once again, I'd like to welcome you, Doctor.
Hello, good evening. Am I audible? Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doctor.
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor.
Yes, good evening, dear fellow academicians in the research community. So, of course, I am tasked tonight, of course, to discuss a particular topic on how to identify, of course, identifying impact factor indexing of reputable journals. So, wait, I'll just use this microphone. Hello, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Can you hear me, sir? No. No. Can you hear me?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. Thank you. So, let me share my PowerPoint. Okay. Once again, good evening from the Republic of the Philippines. So, to my fellow Filipino friends from who is here in the virtual platform, magandang gabi sa inyo lahat. So, I was given a task for tonight to discuss about identifying impact factor in the indexing of reputable journals. So, it is very important for us to know on how to identify, of course, the authentic impact factor of a particular journal, and of course on how to check the reputable indexing in a particular journal, of course. So it's part of that. The first topic that I need to discuss, of course, what are metrics? So how does the community or scientific community measures which is a good or great or a journal or as in is, no? It's being said that the impact factor of a journal relies on the credibility. Of course, it is being based on the number of citations, the number of high index, who cites, especially if the uh, journal is being cited in a Scopus or in other reputable indexing. So which means it will be the best way on how to identify, of course, the metrics of a particular journal. Sometimes, how do you determine the impact of an author's work? Because it should be based on purely of numbers of how many times the article is being cited, which is true, which is being based on, for example, in Google Scholar, it's the basic indexing that we have. If your article is being cited several times, for sure, the your profile, which is and your article, which is being published in that particular journal and which is being indexed on, for example, in several databases, for example, in Scopus, Google Scholar, Web of Science, definitely it will add on a big part or contribute that on the big part of the totality of the metrics of the journal. So purely we are looking here on the number of published articles which is being cited, especially in highly reputable journals. So how can we measure, of course, the quality of research on that? Of course, that is being based of the number of researchers or authors who have read their articles. That's number one, who have cited their articles several times. So I would believe on that, because which means that if your published article is being read and which is being patronized by a particular authors or famous authors, definitely that paper sometimes maybe might be recommended, for example, in a research date, or it might be indexed, or it might be cited several times. So that will be a good part, just like which is being said here. Several methods of calculations on the impact factor of an article, journal, or author have been developed to answer, of course, the question. So sometimes, for example, authors always ask me, because I'm an editor-in-chief in my journal, sometimes they ask me, what is the impact factor of the journal? I always tell them, you should always check based on the indexing that it has. Because if you're going to rely on particulars impact factor system, usually it is being dubious, so which means that you should be aware of how it can be counted or how it can consider that that is an authentic. Okay, so to answer that, be aware that metrics are highly debated, which means there are several discussions on that, or long discussions about how to check the impact factor or the IF on particular journal. So part of that, the number of citations of the journal author, the journal impact factor, and author of high index, because there are hundreds of other metrics available in the internet right now. Some of them can be defined as, sometimes you can say that that is good, or others because of collecting of money. That is, we call things sometimes that is a dubious, or that is, we call them fraud, because they are just after with the money. So I always tell my authors, if you want to check the impact factor of a particular journal, you can check the indexing. For example, if you want to check it, you can go to Google Scholar, you can check the profile of the journal there. Definitely, it will reflect on the number of citations that it has. But if you're purely after with a particular impact factor, and then, for example, they have a particular system that counts the number of impact factor that it has, for example, 7 point something, that is based on a particular indexing partner, which means that is obvious, that is fraud. Because based on my own experience, I have experienced many impact factor system that offer this one, and they collect money. So definitely on my part, being an editorship and a practitioner, I do not engage with that, because usually we focus on a particular number of citations and number of articles which is being read, being cited several times. So which means that the papers which is being published in my journal or in other journal, which is being patronized by different authors. For example, the paper was been cited in a Harvard University or in other libraries. So definitely that's a good chance, no? Or in an Eric repository, that's a good chance that the journal will increase the number of citations, and later it will have its higher metrics. We are talking about here the number of citations, the H index, the I index, which means it will reflect on that metrics that that particular author contributes a lot on the journal. So we are talking about here the number of citations and the number of how many the H index and the I index of authors. It will be counted to combine the number of formula based on the number of their citations. So that would be a good way on how to check if the impact factor of a particular journal is really authentic. Okay, so be careful when looking for a journal that displays the impact factor. For me, sometimes I do not rely on impact factor. What good for me is to check the indexing first. So to check the indexing and go through it, for example, the journals index in Web of Science, you can check that based on the Clarabase Analytics, or if the journals index in Google Scholar, it has a simple system that counts. You can check there. So I think that would be the best way on how to check the impact factor of a particular journal. And it plays a big role when identifying those part of being awareness on the research community. Because, you know, guys, in the journal metrics, of course, there are numbers of bibliometrics indicators. So it depends on how they will measure it. For example, on measuring scholarly journals, most of them measures are calculated from different impact factor journals, which is something that's being indexed in highly scholarly journals. For example, in the database of Web of Science, under the Web of Science, it has many categories, or sometimes it can be indexed in Scopus or in a ASEAN citation. So it has case-to-case basis, because all metrics based on Web of Science index can be accessed by a journal citation reports. Just like, for example, on the counterpart of Google Scholar, if you're going to visit the indexing of Google Scholar, for example, that particular journal, for example, my journal Ichimober, you would be able to see on the number of how many citations that the journal already received based on the contributions coming from different authors. So definitely, if the journal receives a lot of citation, because those citations or metrics are coming from the published articles, which is being cited from different authors, which means it's clear. It depends on how many readers or authors who have patronized your particular journal, for example. Okay, so it means that it relies on the quality of paper which is being published in your reputable journal. Because if the even if you are indexed in higher databases, but if those papers are not really being cited, there's a big problem on that, because it might have an impact on the quality of the papers which is being published or in the journal. So part of that, it's very important to check the quality of the paper. So we are talking about here the quality and versus the quantity of the number of publications, and of course the number of publications, which is it can increase the number of in citations, and it will give a good standard, because it will be patronized by a lot of authors coming from the global community. And of course, in addition, it has also an eigenfactor measures that accessed by the website. So a Scopus-based metrics can be accessed on Scopus, of course, platform, as well as other higher indexing database. It has its own impact factor based on what I have mentioned a while ago. Just like, for example, in Google Scholar, it has a number of articles which is being cited. We have the H index, the I index. Those metrics can help to increase the reliability or reputability of the journal, which means that journal is really reputable because the articles that they have published is already been cited or read by many authors around the global community. Okay, so those are basic criteria on how to check how it's being done. Okay, because I have my own experience as an editor. You usually check on its indexing, not on which is being posted on the journal's website. Okay, because sometimes it can lure you around, especially if that's a predatory journal. So better yet to check what is being indexed, of course, in the said particular journal. Okay, many publishers will also provide information about the impact of their journals on the web pages. Just like, for example, in my journal, usually I always tell them that please check the uh, indexing that it has. And then once you check on it, you can click and you can check the properties of each indexing. For example, in Google Scholar, from there you would be able to see the specific report on how it is being indexed, the number of site H index and the number of I index that is coming from uh, several sources of databases. Because right now, because of the aid of technology, it can easily track down everything using uh, very common metric system. For example, Google Scholar, we have Clarivate Analytics on the Web of Science. For example, we have, I consider, of course, sometimes even Scopus and of course, even ResearchGate, it can count the number of citations or number of press, or sometimes they can recommend your articles. It's very important to check those particular cases. Okay, so it's very important to check those things. Then to be transparent, of course, that's number one. And of course, you can look up on the impact factor of a journal. A journal's impact factor is a measure of how often the average article in the journal has been cited in a particular year. So meaning, if you're going to access that particular attributes of the journal, you must be able to click a particular link database and check it. Okay, so which means that I do not give an exact indexing or impact factor who can monitor the performance of the published paper, but definitely if you're going to check one by one the indexing of one particular journal, from there you would be able to see the performance of your journal from publications, citations, okay, or recommendations. So which means that you are practicing very well in terms of publications. Okay? But the common sad there, for example, here in the Philippines, usually their mindset is just focused on focused in Web of Science. But you know, guys, there are also a lot of reputable indexing which can also be considered to help, of course, scholars to boost their motivations to write papers and to publish that in a reputable journals. For example, we have Web of Science, the Scopus, and also I think the Assay and Citation or the ACI can also help. But here in the Philippines, for example, we have a lot of reputable indexing. For example, we have the Philippine e-journals, which is one of the best indexing here in the Philippines. And also we have coming from the Lasal University, which also measures the number of citations. So which means from there, if they have established a particular metric, so which means that is a good sign that the papers which is being published there can also determine the number of citations and the number of H index or I index. So which means those are credible type of indexing which is being posted in the journal website. Okay, do not always check even if there's a logo of Scopus in a particular journal. We might not be able to know if the indexing of that particular journal is still existing. There are cases sometimes that even the paper, even the journals being indexed before, there are some cases also that it might be discontinued because of some irregularities. For example, the number of frequency of the paper which is being posted or published in a particular particular months or series of publications or acceptance. So which means that they should stick of the following standards, which can help to contribute, of course, in terms of how to determine, of course, a good impact factor that is being based on the indexing, which is I mentioned a while ago. So part of that always, guys, you should always check. And I know it's not difficult because we already have an internet connectivity, and you can just click it as long as you can be able to know the specific of the place, and you will be able to see it, and that will be the easiest part. Okay, so citation metrics, of course, aims to assess the academic impact of a journal by measuring how often the articles are included in the referencing list of your publications. So if your primary goal is for one or for other scholars to read in your research report, then citation metrics can be used in a particular scenarios, which is being, I know that a lot of journals right now relies on a particular citation metrics, just like what I mentioned. No? For example, we have, I'm going to show you later, rank of which is the best common database in a journal. However, when considering any citation metrics, you should be aware that citations are not necessarily a measure of quality. Okay? So take note of that. Citation patterns vary by discipline. So it depends, for example, if I was invited to a particular research fora, I have to make sure that the discipline that they're using is either multidisciplinary, or they focus on one particular subject matter. For example, if that is ICT, for example, guys. So it depends on the citation patterns by the discipline, and of course vary by article type. So sometimes you will not be able to know that your your article is already been considered. Okay, subject matter will also affects citations. Of course, that's really true. Okay. So what is the impact factor? Of course, the easiest way to define the impact factors is a bibliometric tool for grading academic journals rather than their publication. Indicates that the importance of a journal represent how many times the content published in a period of years in a specific journal cited in the year by an author. So the more precise the journal's impact factor can be divided the total number of times when this article or which is being published recently. So what is indexing impact factor? Of course, the impact factor or IF or journal impact factor is an academic journal which can contribute on the scientometric indexing, which is calculated by, for example, Claire Bits or any other groups. Okay, so those things play a vital role. For example, how do you calculate the H index or the high index? So it is being measured of the number of publications published, take note, or productivity, as well as often they are being cited. Because citation plays a vital role. Because the number of publications with the citations number greater than or equal to will be processed later. Okay. So what is the index citation for research paper? So usually a citation indexing makes links between books and authors, articles that were not been written in the past few. So which means that in other words, it is a technique that allows us to trace. Okay. So how impact factor is calculated? So the impact factor for journal is calculated by dividing the number of current year citations to the source items published in that journal during the previous 2 years. So which means that it is easy to compute. So predatory misleading metrics, sometimes predatory publisher is it has an opportunity, it is an opportunistic publishing venue that exploits the academic need to publish but offers little reward. So do not be lured with that because sometimes they will just get your data. So might as well, once you start for a particular situation, so always monitor it. Excuse me. So in the academic world right now, in the academic research community, there are scenarios that we only are aware of it. It's either you publish or you perish because you have submitted your article on a fraud metrical system that uh, installed on a particular school. Okay. So fake journal factor, how to spot them. So always check the company or simply do a web search will often pull up questions which is being raised by other editors regarding a particular metrics or sometimes failing that the explore their website is based on number of practice which is being done. And then are they asking for an upfront payment? So I don't know. Okay, so it's a case-to-case basis of a particular person. And next. So reliable impact factor samples are those from Thomson Reuters or Elsevier's Scopus database, which power metrics such as this one uh, might be uh, accepted. Okay, those are basic things that we need to know. So which power metrics such as the impact factor, the Chimago journal rank or the SJR, and the source of normal impact per publications. Okay, so it's a case-to-case basis. Of course, the indexation of a particular journal is considered a reflection of its quality and its best practices that I have experienced. And these are the top indexing journals which might be considered as one of the best. For example, number one is Scopus, second is the Web of Science, and we have the Doge, which is very familiar for us. We also have the PubMed, the chemical abstract services, and other areas that might be considered later. But these are highly prioritized based on the situations that we have right now. So it's very important to start with this. Okay, by identifying this particular top indexing, you are safe upon submissions to your particular okay. So on my part, it is always important to know the role of course, of each author upon submission to a particular journal or anything. So you can talk with them, set a particular uh, mission or anything that will be able to help. So impact factor for me plays a big role because of its feature, right? There have an options to redesign it or change it, so it's based on your understanding and based on your purpose. So those are very important in terms of the impact factor and also the indexing. Okay, usually tell me sometimes that it is best to read particular references, which is common, for example, that's a thesis or dissertation. It's very important for us to know those things. Okay, so those are the common ways on how to know the impact factor of a journal, the reliability of particular uh, window. So you should focus on what specific article you will be able to look and publish in a particular journal. Okay. So of course, part of it, maybe I'll be showing a link where you can able to check the which I mentioned. Okay, so it's very important to check it one by one from time to time. For example, I'll be sharing a particular website, for example, the website of my journal. So you would be able to check, of course, the indexing itself, and then you can check them one by one. For example, you have Google Scholar, so you can check them, the number of, for instance, the number of citations that we already received, the number of this type of H index. So it's very important to check everything. So this is a good example that I have shown to you that not only in Clearbits Analytics in Scopus, but we also have on Google Scholar where you can monitor, okay, the performance of your publication which is being submitted. So take note of that. Always that there should always be a way on how to look for it. Okay, so I think that would be all on my part. So with that, thank you and good evening. And it's open now. Let us now proceed with the question and answer forum. If you have any questions, you can ask me directly or you can post questions in the group chat. So it will be more clear on our side on what I have discussed regarding, of course, publications. And it's a big role for us to have those kind of situational cases. So I think that would be on my part. So thank you for inviting me. So that thank you and good evening in Mabuhay from the Republic of the Philippines. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. Hello. If you have any questions, you can. Okay, there's some questions, guys. I will be reading it. It is being said that how reputable are open journals? Those are that are sub-branch of high impact journals. So I think on that part, it is very important, just like what I mentioned, always check the indexing partner usually. For example, if the journal especially is indexed in Doge, or index, for example, in IBSCO, but it has its particular number of citations, number of uh, it depends. So which means that that is a sign that the journal is reputable. Okay, another, anybody guys? Yes, Mukaila, you have questions, Mukaila? Yes, Mukaila, any questions? So I hope that those topics are already clear now on your part. Questions, guys? Yes, Sir, correct me. It's Rock, meaning is here. Do you have any questions? You're raising your hand. Any questions so far, guys? So with that, I think that would be all for today. So thank you for joining this event. So I will now hand over this to the moderator for today. So I think that would be all on my part. So if you have any questions, you can key in your question in the chat box, but later it will be received. So with that, guys, so thank you for attending on our webinar. And if you have any questions,
Is there any questions for the participants?
I think there's a
Yes,
question.
okay. Yeah.
There's a
Okay, can
question.
you hear my voice? Hello,
Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
Rupiningsih from Indonesia.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay.
ma'am. What's your
Okay,
question?
I'm interested in sharing knowledge dealing with how we measure the impact factors. Yes, but actually that maybe I do not give you a question, maybe only sharing dealing with the impact factors. Yes, actually that some researchers actually are confused how to identify the journals, whether the journal is safe or not, because some journals say that the index corpus, for example, is a Q1, but directly for 1 year, directly this is not working for the Scopus index. So we can call this is discontinued journal. So how can we sometimes we are thinking how can we identify, because sometimes we believe dealing with the impact factors, dealing with the Scopus index Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4, but actually directly they are discontinuous in 1 year. And then for identifying the impact factors, I think we can have some ways. For example, we can choose for the Scopus preview, or maybe SJR, but I'm not so sure about the result of SJR. Sometimes it is not same with Scopus preview. And I believe in Scopus preview because we can see not only the impact factor, but also SAT score and also SGR, and SNP. But a little discussion here. Really, that my index corpus is 3, and but my WAS index only 1. I'm wondering, I know that the Scopus is higher than WAS, but when I check in my Google Scholar and also in my Scopus index, that my WAS index only 1 and my Scopus index 3. So maybe you can give me further information why between index corpus and also index WAS are different, and my index WAS is lower than my Scopus index. Okay, thank you.
I think the answer there is based on that particular. For example, the reason why your paper or your profile or your paper has a low impact factor comparing to the Web of Science, the WAS, is because maybe the author that was cited on that particular indexing has also affiliated with Scopus. That's another thing. And because on other part of the Web of Science, they have another set of ways and metrics. So that's one a good part, that there's a big difference in terms of
I
metrics.
know.
So
Yes. Okay.
that's
So it
what we
means
are
that,
talking.
yes. Okay. I know. So it means that between WAS indexing and Scopus indexing may be different, right?
Different way. For example, if
Yes, different ways. Yes.
they have the different ways on how to do the metric system, because I believe on that particular way, they have different calculations on that based on what I have discussed, that there are some other ways and means on how to identify their techniques of giving impact factor in terms of number of citations and number of H index and number of I index. So it depends on the system that they have, especially that I know that the Web of Science has many sub branches.
So it depends, yeah, whether the this article indexed by WAS or indexed by Scopus. It is different way, right?
Yes, ma'am. It's a different way.
Okay,
Especially,
thank you.
yes, ma'am. You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay.
I think there's a question. Will you consider a foster type from a journal as a predatory? I think it depends. If they are responsive enough and they will be responsive from time to time, I think that is not predatory. It's a case-to-case basis. As long as they are transparent in terms, for example, of publications, the process of their publications, the process of the acceptance, on how they will uh, charge for the article processing charges, it depends. Okay? Because I know in my own experience, I can consider that the journal is predatory if they do not reply. For example, if you send a particular inquiry, they will just reply that they have to send money for this. And that is a good example. That is a predatory journal. Okay, so it's a case-to-case basis. So even it's responsive, but if they are transparent enough in every aspects of transaction, so definitely, I know that that is not a predatory. Okay, so it's a case-to-case basis because I know in my own thought that it's in your own perception if you're going to lure them. Okay, it's a case-to-case basis on how you will be able to be transparent enough. We're talking here about transparency. Okay. Yes. Yes, ma'am. Suman. Or sir.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Professor. Thank you for your wonderful session. I hope my question is not out of the context, but one thing that bothers me a lot is that how to differentiate the predatory journals who have exactly the same websites, the same pages as those of the original journals, and they're showing high impact factor, and more or less every part of their website is similar to that of the original one. So how to identify, uh, how to differentiate the predatory journals from the original ones?
Maybe on that, it's very simple, man. Number one is you can check on the bells list. That's number one. Another, you can check on one of the best practices that I always check is you should always check their indexing if they're really connected with them. For example, if they post the log, if they're indexed with Scopus, you should validate the word there is you validate it one by one. For example, if they told you that they are indexed with Duwaj, you should check it part by part. Another good example that I want to share, for example, is they post in their website. I will not name a particular journal. For example, they will tell on the journal that they have a 7 point something impact factor. But if you're going to check the background of that impact factor, because they are collecting monies, so which means that is dummies, that is predatory, in my own opinion. That's why, in my own perception, if every author asks me, I will tell them that you should check the indexing properties, everything, the number of citations, and the number of each index. That would be a good sign of metric in my own experience. Yes, sir. Do you have any question? Yes, yes, ma'am. Ano, question? Yes, ma'am, Suman. Any more, guys? So I think on that part, the word there in terms of how to identify predator, even a cloned journal, you should always check. Okay.
Yeah, is there any authentic source to check that? Is there any website or any other any website type something that from where you can check the authenticity of the journal, where all the authentic journals are there? Is there any forum, any
Number one,
website?
I can consider if I think the number one that you can check, for example, if the journal is member of the watch, that's number one. If the journal is member with Quvae, if the journal is, for example, is indexed in common or should I say reputable top
No,
indexing database, that's number one thing that you can check. But
I,
definitely, ma'am, I cannot give you an exact system. So it's a case-to-case basis. It depends. Okay.
actually, I have seen a few journals who have the predatory ones. They have prepared their website similar to that of the original one. When you open up their website, you find that you get confused because it is 100% similar to that of the original one, or not 100. It might be of 99% similar to that of the original one. Apparently, when you check from Scopus, when you check from Web of Science, the journal's name is over there, but you become a victim of them when you pay the money and when you process everything, and eventually you end up in a predatory journal. So I was wondering if there is any authentic source from where we can check the authenticity of that journal, where the original web links of the original journals are there, if there is any source, if there is any guide from where we can um, get to know this.
Maybe I can share you a particular article on that, ma'am. There's a lot of ways or techniques on how to determine if a journal is dubious or predatory, or there even the word clone. There's also a clone journal. Sometimes
Can
it
you
that is
can the organizer or the coordinator or the moderator please share that name or share the article in the chat box?
yes, ma'am. I'll do that. I will share that later. I just give it
Thank
to
you.
the organizing committee so that it will be a big help on that. Because to be honest, there's a lot of ways and means on how to determine to check a predatory journal or even a clone journal. Because I have experienced so many things that because of the vulnerability of the method right on the internet, it can easily be copied and pasted. Okay.
Okay. And one more thing, what I might be sounding a very, I'm asking a very basic question. What is the age factor? Age factor.
It's a high index factor, ma'am. It's a high
Oh,
index.
okay. And is there any normal range for it, or a reference value of it, which indicates the journal is high quality journal or a poor quality journal?
Uh, a number of figure which is good, for example, is 3. High index of 3 is a good sign that
Three.
it has 3, number of 3 or more than that.
Okay. Okay. So the minimum cutoff is 3.
Yes, ma'am.
And how it is different from the simple impact factor?
Uh, it depends, of course, just like what the first participant mentioned, it's a different way because a lot of indexing, they have their own strategy and own method on how to measure their own impact factor. For example, they have a particular formula, the number of citations, the number of years that they have, the number of authors. So it depends on their formula. For example, in the SJR, they have their own formula also. So it's a case-to-case basis, ma'am. Sometimes you cannot be able to check if the number of citations that they have in the journal, for example, in Google Scholar doesn't match, for example, in other indexing database, for example, in the Web of Science. They also have a separate number of citations, which is not the same on the other indexing. So because they have their own system on how to determine the impact factor of a particular journal. So it's a case-to-case basis.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. You're welcome,
Thank
ma'am.
you. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Sonia Arsono. Dr. Froilan, I
Yes,
would like
yes.
to ask about the time of impact factor and indexing of reputable journals. Like my experiences before, that my journal in Journal of Cleaner Production from
Yes.
London, from I think from UK, yeah, and Scopus quarter one. Um, is there any limitation time? Because when the first publication of my paper in several years ago, on maybe 7 years ago, is it a certain number is different with now, with today? I mean, so how to identify if when or how is the impact factor and indexing reputable journal? Is it in the same year when my paper was published or today? Because it's when I wrote in the today is different with the first time when 7 years ago. Please give me information about this. Thank you very much.
I think on that particular part, sir, there's a different
Mhm.
way, because maybe 7 years ago if you have published that article, and if you're going to apply this method, because I know that the impact factor only is a big deal right now, because it only works on the citations that it has, and a lot of calculation is being done on a different method. So the process right now is because of a lot of thing which is being done, and a lot of indexing database. They have their own measurement. So definitely the process that they have done before is a
Mhm.
different way comparing right now, because sir,
Okay.
because
Okay.
even a lot of fake impact factor, a lot of them offers. For
Yeah.
example, what I have experienced, I did not apply for it because I know if you apply for a particular impact factor, if they will,
Uh-huh.
you will pay for them. That's fraud. Okay.
Mm.
So the
Okay.
process, so meaning the process of evaluation right now, it's more
Yes.
of
Complex.
uh, complexing rather than before. It's more of how do they strategize, because right now there's a lot of ways and means because of the technology. Because I believe that 10 years ago or 7 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
it's really difficult to measure the number of
Okay.
citations comparing right now, because of also another way is
Mm.
because of the aided
Mm.
technology using
Okay.
web based.
Mm. Okay. So the conclusion is, what is the correct thing is today impact factor or indexing or reputable journal, or 7 years ago when I wrote maybe when I write in the report.
Most likely, sir, if you're going to ask me, the most reputable one right now is today, because everything can be
Today.
reprogrammed using programmable
I
things.
see. I
Using,
see.
for example, any machine learning or artificial intelligence, it can be done. And it's
Mm.
realistic. And I know that is really true.
Okay. 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 Thank you, Dr. Fran. Thank you very
Yes,
much.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Any more questions from the participants? Any more, guys? I think there's a question. So, good evening, Doc. Aside from checking the impact factor, can you share to us briefly on how can we avoid being a victim of predatory journals? So, thank you so much. So, being a victim of predatory journals is really difficult to answer, because if you're a victim of predatory journals, definitely what I have experienced before. To be honest, I was also a victim of predatory journal.
Mm.
The
Yeah.
the risk the process that I have done is to withdraw the paper. Okay, so you can send a retraction from the editorial board. You can send them from time to time, and then later they will retract your paper based on that. But on that part, I think I almost took me 5 months before they have retracted my paper. Okay, and you should be careful upon submission. So the technique there is check in the bells list. Another one, if the journal is, they said that they're indexed in Scopus or Web of Science, always check if they are discontinued, or the number of or articles which is being uploaded in their database. So check if they're discontinued. So you should be careful and the word there is always be aware of what is being indexed or posted in the website. Because on my side, I always tell my authors that the way that I transact with them is I'm always transparent everything in terms of the processes, in terms of the article processing charges, and I always tell them the reason why the papers keep so long in terms of peer review, because we have a process, a standard operational procedure that we need to follow. Okay, so those are standards coming from copy.
Mm,
Okay,
okay.
any more questions, guys? So any more?
So,
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I have an experience. I submit my article to the Scopus Q1 journal, and then they publish the article, but that article is not indexed until now. The publication has been a year ago. What has happened?
I think if they told you that they are indexed with Scopus, sir, am I right? They told you that that is indexed with Scopus.
Yeah, the journal is indexed in Simeco.
Simago, yeah.
Yeah, but when the journal published my article, it is not found
I think
in the Scopus index.
I think the problem there, I think the journal is already discontinued from the Scopus, or maybe during the time that you have processed your paper, maybe the journal was discontinued during the process. I think that's the common problem.
So is it
So-
possible journal Q1 directly discontinued?
Yes, sir. It's also possible. It can also be discontinued, maybe of some practices of they have done. For example, the number of frequency that they have published in their database. So if they are not, based on experience, if they are not, for example, reliable in terms of the number of papers or articles which is being published, which is being published on a frequency, so definitely the Scopus database will discontinue them, because the standard there, they should always be transparent, or maybe it's already out of scope. That's another big issues there. So you should always check on the aims in scope, the number of articles that they have published, frequency. Those are the basic things that we need to check, the reason why they are being discontinued, whether they are indexed before in Q1 Scopus or Web of Science. They will be subjected for discontinuity because of the malpractice of which is being done from time to time. So I think the word there, they should follow standards coming from the copy to avoid discontinued from other databases such as Web of Science and Scopus.
Another problem is in the Web of Science. The journal still indexed in the Web of Science. I published an article 2 years ago, but they just put my article out of the web. You know, if we check it in the website of the journal, yes, it is. The article is still there, but no indexation to my article. They put it like just they put the article in the web, in the webs of the journal, but
In the Web of Science.
unindexed. This is I think it's in Malaysia, in Kuala Lumpur. The journal
I
is
think-
in Web of Science indexed, but the article, my article that I already published, unindexed till now.
I think the problem there is again is the same issues with Scopus. Maybe the situation is they will tell you that they are indexed. They can easily say that they're indexed in Web of Science. They can easily put the logo, but the reality there, in terms of the properties of the Web of Science, they are already discontinued. So even you publish
No.
thousands of
The
articles,
journal is still
indexed.
still indexed in the Web of Science. You know, even the citation of my article, they put it their citation. You know, some
Okay.
cite my article, And then when I
Okay.
check in the website of the journal, my citations is also uploaded. I mean, they put in their website how
Okay.
many writer already cite my article, but
in
no
the Web of
indexation.
Science,
Yep.
in the Web of Science, maybe there's a problem with the on their uploading from the journal going to the Web of Science. I think there's a problem with them. So I think you should contact the editorial board regarding the issues on that, sir. You can check on them.
No, just silence, no response.
Yes, if that's the case, that's another problem, sir. So, or another thing, if you can get in touch with the Web of Science team.
Can you share you the journal web?
Sir, may journal,
Journal of Psychiatry in Malaysia.
Maybe I'll just check on that, sir. I'll just check on
Alright.
that on. So any more questions, guys, regarding reputability? So what I can say is just be careful on submissions, especially on broad journals, but it's really difficult to retrieve them.
So we'll wind up the session now, Doctor. Thank you. Thank you for imparting your knowledge and remarks on the concepts. Your examples were fascinating, and the slides you showed gave us a clear understanding that we couldn't have gained in any other way, Doctor. On behalf of Quvae Research and Publications, I extend our gratitude for sharing your time and thoughts with us. Thank you once again, Doctor. And here is our next webinar on fake reviews detection in real-time business big data, conducted on 19th May 2023 via Zoom meeting, presented by Dr. Ahmad J. Obaid. Participants are requested to register for this webinar through our website. And participants will receive your certificate and presentation document within 7 to 10 working days. Thank you.